Have you ever seen 5 fouls in a quarter like Jacob Bronson?
It's amazing,
Jalen.
right? I've been at games where LeBron James did actually foul out. I think it was an Indiana-Miami game, and it was like seeing Haley's Comet, something like that happen. I was saying for LeBron to get 5 fouls in a quarter, he would probably have to take a baseball bat and start hitting guys. Even then, the refs would say, well, it was a natural swinging motion, so it's not really a foul. But considering a player of that stature to get 5 fouls in a quarter, but if you go back to the start of that quarter, Jaylen Brown, Josh Hart got into it with about 11:30 left in the third quarter. And I think at that point, the referees decided we're going to call it really tight. The Knicks took 18 free throws in that quarter, and I think the Boston Celtics took 18. The Knicks took 8. So there were 26 free throws. The quarter was way too long. There were too many fouls, and nobody knows that better than Jalen Brunson.
But Jalen, it's so funny because Rich is a diehard Knicks fan, and I heard screaming throughout the house, and I'm thinking one of the kids is dead, and I get in there, and it's a 5th foul. And I was just curious, for you, because you are who you are, watching the series go down, what were your thoughts? Not only, you mentioned that obviously it was too long, what have you, but as you look at this series, where do you see it going?
I still think the Knicks are in control. And I thought, the regular season that the Knicks had, they didn't beat Boston, they didn't beat Cleveland, they didn't beat Oklahoma City. And I get it. That is a good storyline during the season, but none of that mattered. And I thought the way the Knicks were playing, winning those games on Detroit. I do the morning radio show with Brian Scalabrine. He obviously does the Celtic games. And I bet him on game 1. I really thought that the Knicks were going to get a game up in Boston. I didn't think they were going to get 2, nor did I think Boston was going to blow those 20-point leads.
Mm-hmm.
But you ladies know this. When you lose games that you're supposed to win, it's so hard in the playoffs to make up for that. Cleveland should have won game 2 against Indiana. They never recovered from that. Boston, yes, game 1 they probably should have had. Game 2 they definitely should have had. They've yet to catch up for doing that. Now, if they win tonight, then they're all caught up and they have a game 7 on their home court. But when you give games like that away, because you knew at some point the Knicks were going to have a good game, and they certainly did in game 4. But it feels like Boston is up 4-1 in the series, but Boston still has to win 2 more games to win the series.
Yeah, and on the flip side, funny you mentioned Brian. I covered him at USC when he was there. I think that was another 50,000 years ago. But you mentioned the series, and it looks almost as if the Celtics are rallying around their fallen leader and playing almost crisper, smarter basketball.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. You're always gonna play a little differently, and I think a lot of times with the superstar players, that they tend to do isolation a little bit too much. And I think you saw in the last game the ball movement was better, but a big part of it was Jaylen Brown.
Yep.
Jaylen Brown. There's always been this thing out there, which I never understand with a lot of the players. They want their own team. They want to be the guy. Well, guess what? He's going to have that opportunity for a while because Jayson Tatum's not going to be back at the start of next season. And I think for Jaylen Brown, to his credit, it started in game 5. He became kind of the guy. And it's not just about scoring. It's about getting it done on the defensive end. When Boston has a lot of pride. For me, this is the biggest road game that they've played since they were in Miami a couple of years ago, Eastern Conference Finals. Remember, they had lost the first 3 games, won the next 2. They went back to Boston. I'm sorry, they went back to Miami. They needed to win that game on the road to force a game 7. This is the biggest road game they've had since then, but they've been the best road team in the NBA this year.
So who wins the series, Frank?
I still think it's going to be the Knicks. You mentioned Jalen Brunson when we started, and I think Jalen Brunson is going to have a big game tonight. The weird thing about him fouling out is that he's going to come in more motivated than ever, and he doesn't need much to motivate him. Plus, he only played 33 minutes. So in the long run, him coming out of that game when he did I think it's going to end up helping the Knicks.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.